My name is Connie, and I am 64 years old. I had been gone for just 2 weeks. When I left, I had a home. When I came back, my son had packed my entire life into cardboard boxes. A moving truck sat in my driveway. My belongings were stacked inside it like garbage waiting for the dump. And my son stood there, arms crossed, telling me I needed to go to a nursing home because he needed space for his dog. Before I share what happened next, I want to know where you are watching from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if stories about family betrayal and finding your strength touch your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you will want to hear how one phone call changed everything. Stay with me, because what my son did not expect was about to unfold. Let me take you back to where it all began. I bought this house in 1992 with my husband Earl. We were young, hopeful, and deeply in love. Earl worked as a plumber, and I was a high school history teacher. Neither of us came from money. We saved every dollar, skipped vacations, drove old cars until they fell apart. But we had a dream, and that dream was a home of our own. The first time we pulled into the driveway, I cried. It was a modest ranch-style house with 3 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, and a backyard that stretched out under the Arizona sun. The house had terracotta tiles on the roof and cream-colored stucco walls. Nothing fancy, but to us, it was a palace. Our son Derek was 6 years old when we moved in. I still remember him running through the empty rooms, his little feet slapping against the tile floors, shouting about which room would be his. Earl lifted him up and carried him to the smallest bedroom at the end of the hall. He said, "This one is your son." And Derek's face lit up like Christmas morning. We built our life in that house. Earl planted a citrus tree in the backyard when Derek was in 3rd grade. An orange tree. He said every boy should have a tree to climb. That tree grew taller than the roofline over the years, and every spring it filled our yard with the sweetest smell. I taught at the local high school for 32 years. I loved my students. I poured my heart into lesson plans, after-school tutoring, and field trips. But I always made sure to be home in time to cook dinner for my family. Earl and I would sit on the back patio in the evenings, watching the sunset paint the desert sky in shades of orange and purple. Those were the happiest years of my life. Then 5 years ago, everything changed. Earl got sick. It started with a cough that would not go away. He brushed it off, said it was just allergies from the dust. But I knew something was wrong. I begged him to see a doctor, and when he finally agreed, the news was devastating. Lung cancer. Stage 4. The doctor said it had spread too far. I took a leave of absence from teaching to care for him. For 7 months, I watched the strongest man I knew grow weaker by the day. I held his hand during chemotherapy sessions. I cleaned up after him when he was too sick to move. I whispered prayers into the darkness when he slept, begging God for more time. We spent every penny we had saved on treatments and medications. The insurance covered some of it, but not nearly enough. I sold my car, the little blue sedan I had driven for 12 years. I sold pieces of jewelry that had belonged to my mother. I would have sold my soul if it meant keeping Earl alive. But in the end, nothing worked. Earl passed away on a Tuesday afternoon in October. He took his last breath in our bedroom, in the bed where we had slept together for over 30 years. I was holding his hand when he went. His last words to me were, "Take care of yourself, Connie. Promise me." I promised. After Earl died, I thought Derek would step up. He was 34, then already married to a woman named Christy. At the funeral, Derek held me tight and said, "I will take care of you, Mom. You will never be alone." Those words meant everything to me at the time. I believed them with my whole heart. But promises are easy to make and hard to keep. In the months after Earl's death, Derek visited maybe 3 or 4 times. Christy came once, stayed for 20 minutes, and spent most of that time on her phone. I told myself they were busy. Derek worked as a sales manager at a car dealership. Christy did not work, but she always seemed to have somewhere else to be. I went back to teaching because sitting alone in that house with Earl's ghost was too painful. I threw myself into my work, staying late to grade papers, volunteering for committees I had avoided for years. Anything to keep my mind occupied. 2 years later, I retired. I was 62, and my body was tired. My heart was tired. I wanted to rest, to tend my garden, to read the books I had been putting off for decades. I thought maybe I would travel a little, see the places Earl and I had always talked about visiting. But retirement was lonelier than I expected. Derek called once a month, sometimes less. Our conversations were short and surface level. "How are you, Mom?" "Fine." "How is work?" "Busy." "Okay, talk to you later." Click. Christy never called at all. I tried not to take it personally. I reminded myself that young people have their own lives, their own problems. I was proud of Derek, proud that he had a career and a wife. I told myself that his distance was normal, that all children eventually grow apart from their parents. But deep down, I felt abandoned. Still, I never stopped loving him. He was my son, the baby I had carried for 9 months, the toddler whose scraped knees I had kissed, the teenager I had stayed up waiting for on prom night. No matter how rarely he called or visited, he was still my Derek. I had no idea how wrong I was about him. 3 weeks before everything fell apart, my sister Patty called me from San Diego. Patty is 5 years younger than me, and we have always been close despite the distance between us. She had been married for 28 years to a man named Ronald, a quiet accountant who spent more time with spreadsheets than with his wife. I never liked him much, but I kept that opinion to myself. When she called that evening, I could tell something was wrong. Her voice was shaky, raw, like she had been crying for hours. "Connie," she said, "Ronald left me. He has been having an affair for 3 years." 3 years. With his secretary. Can you believe that I could believe it? Ronald had always seemed like the type. But I did not say that. Instead I said, "Oh honey, I am so sorry. What do you need?" Patty asked me to come stay with her for 2 weeks, just to keep her company while she figured out her next steps. She sounded so lost, so broken. How could I say no? I told her I would book a flight the next day. After I hung up with Patty, I called Derek to let him know about my trip. The phone rang 5 times before he answered, and when he did, he sounded distracted, like I was interrupting something important. "Hey Mom, what is up?" I explained about Patty, about the divorce, about my plan to visit her for 2 weeks. Derek listened without saying much. When I finished, he just said, "Okay, Mom, have fun." And then the line went silent for a moment before he added, "Hey, before you go, where do you keep the deed to the house?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you need to know that?" Derek laughed, but it sounded forced. "Just in case something happens while you are gone," he said. "You know emergencies. Someone should know where the important papers are." It seemed reasonable at the time. Derek was my only child, my next of kin. If something happened to me, he would need access to my documents. I told him the deed was in the small fireproof safe in my bedroom closet, along with my will and other important papers. The combination was our old house number from when Earl and I were first married. Derek said he remembered. Before he hung up, he asked another question that should have raised a red flag, but did not. "The house is fully paid off, right? No liens or mortgages or anything?" I confirmed that yes, Earl and I had paid off the mortgage 10 years ago. The house was mine, free and clear. "Great," Derek said. "Just checking. Have a safe trip, Mom." After we hung up, I sat in the living room feeling uneasy, but unable to pinpoint why. Derek had never shown much interest in the house before. He had never asked about the deed or the mortgage. Why now? I pushed the thought away. I was being paranoid. Derek was just being responsible, looking out for his mother. That was all. 2 days later, something even stranger happened. Christy called me. In the 7 years she had been married to Derek, Christy had called me maybe 5 times total, and 3 of those were to confirm holiday plans. So when her name appeared on my phone screen, I nearly dropped it in surprise. "Hello, hi Connie," she said, her voice unnaturally sweet. "How are you doing?" I told her I was fine, packing for my trip to San Diego. She made small talk for a minute or two, asking about Patty, about my health, about the weather. It felt forced, like she was reading from a script. Then she got to the point. "I was just wondering," she said, "have you ever thought about moving somewhere more manageable, like a retirement community or something?" I was stunned. "I am only 64, I said. "I am perfectly healthy. Why would I move to a retirement community?" Christy backpedaled quickly. "Oh no, I did not mean anything by it. Just thinking about the future, you know. That big house must be a lot of work for one person. I assured her I was fine and ended the call as politely as I could. But after hanging up, that uneasy feeling returned stronger this time. Why was Christy suddenly so interested in my living situation? Why was Derek asking about the deed? I told myself I was overthinking things. I had a trip to pack for, and a heartbroken sister who needed me. I could not afford to waste energy on paranoid thoughts. 2 days later, I flew to San Diego. The 2 weeks with Patty were exactly what both of us needed. We walked along the beach every morning, the Pacific Ocean stretching out before us like a promise of new beginnings. We cooked meals together, drank wine on her balcony, and talked for hours about our lives, our regrets, our hopes. Patty was devastated by Ronald's betrayal, but she was also relieved. She said the marriage had been dead for years. She had just been too scared to admit it. I told her about my loneliness after Earl's death, about Derek's distance, about the strange phone calls before I left. Patty listened with a frown on her face. "Connie," she said, "I do not like the sound of that. Derek asking about the deed, Christy asking if you have thought about moving. Something is not right." I waved off her concerns. "You are being dramatic," I said. "Derek is my son. He would never do anything to hurt me." Patty did not look convinced, but she let it go. During my 2 weeks away, I tried to call Derek 3 times. Each time my call went to voicemail. He responded with short text messages. "Busy. Talk later. Everything is fine." I called my neighbor Dorothy to ask her to water my plants while I was gone. Dorothy was 71, a widow like me, and we had been friends for over 2 decades. She agreed to check on my house and promised to call if anything seemed off. A week into my trip, Dorothy called me. "Connie," she said, "I do not want to worry you, but I have seen some strange things at your house." My heart skipped. "What kind of things?" "Cars I do not recognize," she said. "People going in and out. I thought maybe Derek was checking on the place for you, but there have been different people there several times this week. One of them had a clipboard and was walking around the yard like he was measuring things." I felt a chill run down my spine despite the California sunshine. I am sure it is nothing, I said, trying to convince myself as much as Dorothy. "Derek probably hired someone to do some yard work or something. You know how overgrown the bushes get." Dorothy did not sound convinced, but she agreed to keep an eye on things. I spent the rest of my trip trying not to think about what might be happening back home. Patty needed me, and I was not going to abandon her because of some vague suspicions. But in the back of my mind, a voice kept whispering that something was very, very wrong. When my flight landed in Phoenix 2 weeks later, I had no idea that voice was right. The taxi pulled up to my house at 4 in the afternoon. The first thing I saw was the moving truck. It was enormous white, with green lettering on the side, parked right in my driveway. The back door was open and I could see boxes stacked inside. 2 men in work clothes were carrying more boxes out of my front door. For a moment I thought the driver had made a mistake. I checked the house number, 1742. That was my address. That was my house. But why was there a moving truck in my driveway? I paid the driver and stepped out onto the sidewalk, my small suitcase rolling behind me. The Arizona heat hit me like a wall, but I barely noticed. All I could see were those boxes. As I got closer, I read the labels scrawled on them in black marker. Connie bedroom, Connie books, Connie kitchen stuff, my name, my belongings, being loaded into a truck. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I walked faster, then broke into a half-run, my 64-year-old knees protesting with every step. I reached the front door just as one of the workers was coming out with a box labeled photographs. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice trembling. "What are you doing with my things?" The man looked confused. "We were hired to pack and move these items, ma'am. You will have to talk to the homeowner." "I am the homeowner," I said. Before he could respond, I pushed past him and stepped inside my house. Or what used to be my house. The living room was nearly empty. My furniture was gone. The couch where Earl and I used to sit together every evening vanished. The bookshelf that held 30 years of collected novels dismantled and boxed up. The photographs that lined the walls, the memories of a lifetime, all taken down and packed away. In their place were unfamiliar items. A sleek black leather sofa I had never seen before. A glass coffee table. modern art prints on the walls where my family photos used to hang. I stood there frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. Then I heard his voice. "Oh, you are back early." I turned around. Derek was standing in the hallway that led to the bedrooms. He was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, as if this were just another ordinary day. His expression was calm, almost bored. "Derek," I said, my voice cracking. "What is going on? Why are my things in boxes? What happened to my furniture?" He sighed, like I was a child asking too many questions. "We need to talk, Mom. Let us go outside." He walked past me toward the front door, not waiting to see if I would follow. I stood there for another moment, trying to make sense of the scene in front of me. That was when Christy appeared. She walked out of my bedroom barking orders at one of the workers about where to put something. She was wearing yoga pants and a tank top, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking completely at home. In my home. She saw me and stopped. For just a second, something flickered across her face. Annoyance, maybe, or impatience. Then she smiled, a thin, fake smile that did not reach her eyes. "Oh, Connie," she said. "Derek said you would not be back until tomorrow. We were hoping to have everything finished by then." "Finished," I repeated. "Finished doing what?" She did not answer. She just turned and walked back toward the bedroom, disappearing around the corner. I followed Derek outside. He was standing on the front lawn, his arms crossed over his chest. The sun was beating down on us, and sweat was already forming on his forehead, but he made no move to find shade. "Mom," he said, "Christy and I have decided to move in here." For a moment, I felt a flash of hope. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe they wanted to live with me to help take care of me. Maybe this was all just a miscommunication. "Move in," I said. "With me?" Derek shook his head. "No, Mom. We need the whole house." "For Titan." "Titan." "Our dog," he said as if I were stupid. "The German Shepherd we got 3 months ago. He needs space to run around. Our apartment is way too small for him. He has been going crazy being cooped up all day." I stared at my son, waiting for him to laugh, to tell me this was some kind of joke. He did not. "You are moving me out of my house," I said slowly, "so your dog can have more room." Derek rolled his eyes. "Do not say it like that. You make it sound so dramatic. Look, I already found a place for you. Sunrise Senior Living. It is a nice facility, really clean, good reviews online. You will like it there." "A nursing home," I said. "You want to send me to a nursing home?" "It is not a nursing home," he said impatiently. "It is assisted living. There is a difference." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. I reached out and grabbed the porch railing to steady myself. "Derek," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "This is my house. Your father and I paid for it. We worked our whole lives for it. You cannot just take it from me." He laughed. "Actually, Mom, I can. I have been doing some research. You are getting older. You cannot maintain this place by yourself. It makes sense for someone younger to take over." "Someone younger?" "This is not about age, Derek. This is my home." He shrugged. "It is just a building, Mom. Bricks and stucco. You will be more comfortable in a place with people your own age. They have activities and stuff. Bingo, I think." "You like bingo?" "I do not like bingo," I said, my voice rising. "And I am not leaving my house." "This is insane." Derek's face hardened. "I was hoping you would be reasonable about this," he said. "But I guess that was too much to expect." He turned and walked back toward the house. Over his shoulder, he called out, "The truck is taking your stuff to storage tonight. Someone from Sunrise will pick you up in the morning. You might want to get a hotel room or something." "Derek," I called after him. "Derek, stop. You cannot do this." But he was already inside the door, closing behind him. I stood there on my own front lawn, surrounded by boxes of my own belongings, and felt my entire world crumble around me. I do not know how long I stood there. It could have been minutes. It could have been an hour. The sun moved across the sky, casting long shadows across the lawn, and still I could not make myself move. Inside my house, I could hear voices. Derek giving orders, Christy laughing about something, the workers moving boxes, their footsteps heavy on my tile floors. Eventually, I forced my legs to carry me back inside. I needed to understand what was happening. I needed answers. The house was almost unrecognizable. More of their furniture had appeared. A large dog bed sat in the corner of the living room next to a bowl filled with water. The walls had been stripped of my photographs, my memories, my life. I walked down the hallway toward the bedrooms. My bedroom door was open, and inside I saw Christy directing one of the workers on where to place their king-sized bed frame. My bed, the bed where Earl had died, was gone. I felt sick. I kept walking until I reached the kitchen. On the counter I saw a stack of papers. I picked them up with trembling hands and started reading. They were legal documents, transfer of ownership forms, quit-claim deed templates, all of them with my name and my address printed at the top, and at the bottom of each one, a line for my signature. I flipped through the pages, my horror growing with each one. There were brochures for real estate companies, printouts from property websites showing my house with an estimated value of $1.8 million. Notes scribbled in Christie's handwriting about comparable sales in the neighborhood. They were planning to sell my house, not live in it, sell it, and they wanted me to sign over the deed first. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to find Derek standing in the kitchen doorway. "I see you found the paperwork," he said casually. "I was going to explain all that tomorrow after you had settled in at sunrise. Explain what exactly I asked, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage. That you are trying to steal my house. Steal is a strong word, Mom. I prefer to think of it as estate planning. Estate planning. I am not dead, Derek." He shrugged. "Not yet. But you are not getting any younger. It makes sense to transfer assets now while you are still competent. Tax benefits and all that." I stared at him, this stranger who wore my son's face. "Where did you go?" I wanted to ask. "What happened to the little boy who used to climb into my lap and tell me I was the best mom in the world? I am not signing anything I said. And I am not leaving this house." Derek's expression darkened. "I was hoping we could do this the easy way," he said. "But if you want to make it difficult, we can do that too." "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means I have already talked to a lawyer," he said. "I can file for conservatorship. Have you declared mentally incompetent? Once that goes through, I will have power of attorney over all your assets, including this house." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You would do that? To your own mother, if I have to." We stood there facing each other across the kitchen, where I had cooked 1,000 meals for him, where I had helped him with homework and wiped away his tears and celebrated his birthdays. And I realized I did not know this man at all. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, out of the house onto the front porch. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to think. Dorothy was hurrying across the lawn toward me. She must have seen the whole thing from her window. "Connie," she said, grabbing my hands. "I tried to warn you. I saw them moving things in last week. I thought you knew." "I did not know," I whispered. "I had no idea." Dorothy's face was filled with concern. "What are you going to do?" "I do not know," I admitted. "I do not know." That evening, Derek and Christy made it clear I was not welcome inside. Christy appeared on the porch with a smug smile. "The house is a construction zone right now," she said. "It would not be safe for you to stay here tonight. I am sure you understand." "Where am I supposed to go?" She shrugged. "There is a motel down the road. Or you could go back to your sister's place in San Diego. She seemed to enjoy your company." I looked past her into the house where I had raised my son, buried my husband, built my entire life. Through the window I could see their dog Titan sprawled across my living room floor like he owned the place, which apparently they thought he did. I sat on the porch for hours, unable to leave, unable to go inside. Dorothy brought me a sandwich and a bottle of water, but I could not eat. My stomach was tied in knots. At some point, the moving truck drove away with my belongings. I watched it go, my entire life packed into cardboard boxes and disappearing down the street. The temperature dropped as the sun went down. Arizona nights can be cold, especially in October. I wrapped my arms around myself and shivered. Around 11 o'clock, the lights in the house went out. Derek and Christy had gone to bed. In my bedroom. In my house. I sat there in the darkness, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. And then I remembered something. Earl's voice speaking to me from years ago came back as clearly as if he were sitting beside me. "If anything ever happens, call Nelson. He will know what to do." Nelson Whitfield, Earl's oldest friend, a real estate lawyer who had helped us buy this house 32 years ago. I had not spoken to Nelson in years. After Earl's funeral, he had pressed his card into my hand and told me to call if I ever needed anything. I had tucked the card away and never used it. Until now. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely navigate to my contacts. But Nelson's number was still there, saved from years ago, when Earl had insisted I keep it just in case. It was almost midnight. Way too late to call anyone. But I was sitting on my own porch, locked out of my own home by my own son, with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. I pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a sleepy voice answered. "Hello, Nelson," I said, my voice breaking. "This is Connie, Earl's wife. I am so sorry to call so late, but I need help. I need help right now." There was a pause. Then Nelson's voice came through again, sharper this time, fully awake. "Connie, what is wrong? What happened?" And sitting there on my porch in the cold Arizona night, I told him everything. Nelson arrived at my house at 8 o'clock the next morning. He was not alone. A police officer accompanied him, a young woman with serious eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Her name was Officer Reyes, and she was there to ensure everything remained civil. I had spent the night at Dorothy's house. She had insisted, practically dragging me across the lawn when I refused to leave my property. I barely slept. My mind would not stop racing, replaying every moment, every word, every betrayal. When Nelson pulled into the driveway, I was standing on Dorothy's porch watching. He got out of his car slowly. He was older than I remembered, his hair completely white now, his face lined with decades of courtroom battles. But his eyes were sharp, and when he saw me, he nodded firmly. "We are going to fix this, Connie," he said. "Do not worry." We walked across the lawn together. Officer Reyes flanked us, her hand resting casually on her belt. I do not think she expected trouble, but she was prepared for it. Nelson knocked on my front door. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door swung open, and Derek stood there in sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, clearly just woken up. His eyes went from Nelson to Officer Reyes to me, and I watched his face cycle through confusion, irritation, and finally fear. "What is going on?" he demanded. "Who are you?" Nelson handed him a business card. "My name is Nelson Whitfield. I am an attorney representing your mother, Mrs. Connie. We need to discuss the current situation regarding this property." Derek's jaw tightened. "This is between me and my mother. It is none of your business." "Actually," Nelson said calmly, "it very much is my business. And I suggest we go inside and have a conversation before this becomes a legal matter that none of us want to deal with." Derek looked like he wanted to slam the door in our faces. But Officer Reyes stepped forward slightly, and something in her expression made him think twice. "Fine," he muttered. "Come in." The living room was even more transformed than it had been the day before. Their furniture was fully arranged now, their photographs on the walls, their belongings scattered everywhere. It looked like they had been living here for months, not days. Christy appeared from the hallway, her face contorted with annoyance. "What is all this noise? Some of us are trying to sleep." Then she saw Officer Reyes, and her expression changed to one of careful neutrality. We all sat down. Nelson on one end of the couch, me beside him. Derek and Christy across from us in chairs that did not belong in my house. Officer Reyes stood by the door observing. Nelson opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of my deed, my mortgage payoff documents, and the will Earl and I had written years ago. "Let me make this very simple," Nelson said, spreading the documents on the coffee table. "This house is owned entirely by Mrs. Connie. Her name is on the deed. The mortgage was paid off 10 years ago. There are no liens, no encumbrances, no legal claims by any other party." He looked directly at Derek. "That includes you." Derek crossed his arms. "She is my mother. I have rights." Nelson shook his head. No, you do not. Not unless she is declared legally incompetent by a court of law. And I can assure you, based on my conversation with her last night and this morning, she is as sharp as anyone I know." He paused, letting that sink in. "What you have done," he continued, "is illegal. You entered her home without permission. You removed her belongings without consent. You prevented her, the legal owner, from accessing her own property. Any one of those actions could result in criminal charges." Derek's face had gone pale. Christy was gripping the arm of her chair so tightly her knuckles were white. "Criminal charges," Christy said. "That is ridiculous. We are family." "Family does not give you the right to steal," Nelson replied. "And make no mistake, what you have done constitutes theft. Theft of property, theft of personal belongings, and attempted theft of real estate." He pulled out another document and held it up. "I found this on your kitchen counter last night," he said. "A quit-claim deed form prepared for Mrs. Connie's signature. Were you planning to coerce her into signing this?" Derek opened his mouth to respond, but Christy cut him off. "We were just trying to help her," she said quickly. "She is old. She cannot take care of this big house by herself. We thought it would be easier for everyone if we just handled things." "Easier for everyone?" Nelson repeated. "Or easier for you to sell the house and pocket $1.8 million? Christy's face flushed red, but she said nothing. Nelson turned to me. "Connie, what do you want to do?" I looked at my son. The little boy I had rocked to sleep read stories to sacrificed everything for. The man who was now sitting across from me, caught in a scheme to steal my home. "I want them out," I said. "I want them out of my house." Nelson nodded. He turned back to Derek. "You have 24 hours to vacate the premises," he said. "All of your belongings must be removed. All of Mrs. Connie's belongings must be returned undamaged to their original locations. If you fail to comply, we will file criminal charges and pursue civil damages." Derek looked like he had been punched in the stomach. "You cannot do this," he said weakly. "I can," Nelson replied. "And I will. Officer Reyes is here as a witness to this conversation. Everything said here today is on the record." Officer Reyes nodded in confirmation. Derek turned to me, his eyes pleading. "Mom, please. I am your son. You cannot just kick me out." I felt something twist in my chest. Even after everything he had done, a part of me still wanted to protect him, to fix this, to pretend it had never happened. But then I remembered the boxes with my name on them, the papers on the kitchen counter, the bed where Earl died thrown away like garbage, the nursing home brochures. "You asked me to live in my own house while you and your wife and your dog took over," I said slowly. "You packed up my belongings while I was helping your aunt through the worst time of her life. You planned to sell my home out from under me and put me in a nursing home." I stood up. "I gave you everything, Derek. I sacrificed my career, my savings, my time, my energy. I gave you my whole life. And this is how you repay me." Derek said nothing. His eyes dropped to the floor. I turned to Nelson. 24 hours. Nelson nodded. "You heard her. 24 hours. The clock starts now." We walked out of the house together. Behind us, I could hear Christy's voice rising in anger, blaming Derek for the mess they were in. I did not look back. Derek and Christy were gone by noon the next day. I stood on my front porch and watched them load their furniture into a rental truck. The sleek black couch, the glass coffee table, the modern art prints, all of it packed up and hauled away. Christy did not speak to me once. She moved in and out of the house with her jaw clenched and her eyes averted, radiating fury with every step. Derek tried to approach me once. He walked across the lawn with his shoulders hunched, looking more like a scolded teenager than a 39-year-old man. "Mom," he started. I held up my hand. "Not now, Derek." He stood there for a moment, then turned and walked back to the truck. The dog Titan watched everything from the bed of Derek's pickup truck, his tongue lolling out. He seemed completely unaware that he was the supposed reason for all of this chaos. By 1 o'clock, they were gone. I stood in my empty living room, looking at the blank spaces on the walls where my photographs used to hang. The house felt hollow, violated somehow, like something precious had been taken and could never be fully returned. Dorothy came over with a casserole and a bottle of wine. She found me sitting on the floor in the middle of the living room, surrounded by boxes that the moving company had brought back from storage. "Oh, honey," she said, setting down the food and sitting beside me. "What a mess." I nodded, unable to speak. We sat there together in silence for a long time. Then Dorothy squeezed my hand and said, "You did the right thing." "You know that, right?" I was not sure I knew anything anymore. Over the next few days, Patty flew in from San Diego to help me put my house back together. We unpacked boxes, rehung photographs, rearranged furniture. Slowly, the house began to feel like mine again. But something was different. The air felt heavier somehow. The memories that used to bring comfort now carried an edge of sadness. On the third day, I received an unexpected phone call. "Mrs. Connie," a male voice said. "This is Gary Hoffman. I do not know if you remember me." The name rang a distant bell, but I could not place it. "I was in your American history class," he continued. "Graduated in 1998. You probably do not remember, but you changed my life." And then I did remember. Gary Hoffman. A troubled kid from a broken home, always in fights, always on the verge of dropping out. I had spent countless hours tutoring him after school, encouraging him, believing in him when no one else did. "Gary," I said, "of course I remember you. How are you?" "I am doing well," he said. "Really well, actually. I own Hoffman Construction now. Biggest residential builder in the Phoenix area." I nearly dropped the phone. Gary Hoffman, the kid who could barely read when he entered my class, now owned a construction company. "That is wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for him. "I am so proud of you." He laughed. "It is all because of you, Mrs. Connie. You were the only teacher who ever believed I could amount to anything. I never forgot that." There was a pause, and then his voice turned serious. "I heard about what happened," he said. "Nelson Whitfield is an old friend of my father's. He told me everything." I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment. I did not want people knowing about my family troubles, especially not former students. "I am fine," I said. "Everything worked out." "I know it did," Gary said. "But I want to help anyway. Nelson mentioned your house needs some repairs. Let me take care of it. No charge." "Gary, I cannot let you do that. Please," he said. "You have no idea how much you did for me. This is the least I can do to pay it back." I tried to argue, but Gary was insistent. By the end of the call, he had scheduled a team to come out the following week for a full assessment. True to his word, Gary's company spent the next month transforming my house. They replaced the roof, repainted the exterior, updated the plumbing, installed new windows. They even landscaped the backyard, adding a small patio area with a pergola and climbing vines. Gary refused to accept a single penny. "This house is your legacy, Mrs. Connie," he said when the work was finished. "It deserves to be taken care of." I stood in my backyard, looking at the orange tree Earl had planted so many years ago, now surrounded by beautiful new landscaping, and I cried. But for the first time in weeks, they were tears of gratitude, not grief. 6 months passed. My house had never looked better. The new paint gleamed in the Arizona sunlight. The garden bloomed with desert flowers. The orange tree produced the sweetest fruit it had ever grown, as if it too had been given a second chance. I found my rhythm again. I joined a book club at the local library and made friends with women who shared my love of historical fiction. I started volunteering at an elementary school, helping children learn to read. I even took a ceramics class and discovered I was terrible at it, but I loved it anyway. The loneliness that had haunted me after Earl's death began to fade. Not because I had forgotten him, but because I had finally learned to fill my life with purpose again. Patty called me every week now, sometimes more. Her divorce was finalized and she was thriving. She had started a small catering business out of her apartment, and it was growing faster than she could keep up with. Dorothy and I had dinner together twice a week. We traded recipes, complained about our aches and pains, and watched old movies on her enormous television set. I was happy, genuinely happy, for the first time in years. And then Derek came back. I was in the garden when I heard a car pull into my driveway. I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees, and walked around to the front of the house. Derek was getting out of a beat-up sedan I did not recognize. He looked terrible. Thin, pale with dark circles under his eyes. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair unwashed. He stood at the edge of the driveway, not coming any closer, like he was afraid of being turned away. "Mom," he said. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" I studied him for a long moment. This was not the smug, entitled man who had tried to steal my house 6 months ago. This was someone broken, desperate, lost. "Come inside," I said. We sat in the living room in the same chairs we had sat in 6 months ago when Nelson had delivered his ultimatum. But everything was different now. The house was mine again, filled with my things, my memories, my life. Derek sat with his hands clasped between his knees, staring at the floor. "I do not know where to start," he said. "Start at the beginning," I replied. And so he did. Christy had left him 2 months after they moved out of my house. She had blamed him for everything, said he had ruined their chance at an easy life. She had filed for divorce and taken everything she could. Then Derek lost his job. One of his coworkers had heard about what happened with me and reported it to management. They said his behavior showed a lack of integrity and let him go. With no job and no wife, Derek had burned through his savings in weeks. He had sold his car, moved into a studio apartment, then a room in a boarding house, then a friend's couch. The friend had kicked him out last week. "I have nothing left," he said, his voice cracking. "I lost everything. And I know it is my fault. I know what I did to you was unforgivable." He finally looked up at me, his eyes red and wet. "I am so sorry, Mom. I do not know what I was thinking. I do not know when I became this person. Dad would be so ashamed of me." I let his words hang in the air for a moment. "Yes," I said. "He would be." Derek flinched like I had slapped him. "But Earl would also want you to learn from this," I continued. "He would want you to become a better man. The question is, do you want that?" Derek nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I do. I swear I do." I took a deep breath. "I forgive you, Derek." His head snapped up, hope flooding his features. But I continued, holding up my hand. "Forgiveness does not mean we go back to the way things were. It does not mean I trust you. It does not mean I forget what you did." "I know," he whispered. "You are not moving back in here," I said firmly. "You need to learn to stand on your own feet. That is something I should have taught you a long time ago." Derek nodded slowly. "I will help you get started," I said. "First month's rent at a decent apartment, money for groceries and basics. But after that, you are on your own." "Thank you," he said. "Thank you, Mom." I reached across and took his hand. "I love you, Derek. I always will. But I also love myself. And I spent too many years putting myself last. That is over now." Derek squeezed my hand. "I understand," he said. "And I am going to prove to you that I can change. I promise." I looked at my son, this broken man who had caused me so much pain, and I felt something I had not expected to feel. Hope. Not hope that things would be easy. Not hope that he would magically transform overnight. But hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a different story. A better story. That was a year ago. Today, I am 65 years old. I still live in the house Earl and I bought together, the house where we raised our son, the house where my husband took his last breath. But it is not just a house anymore. It is a home, my home, filled with friends, with purpose, with joy. Derek is doing better. He found a job at a hardware store, nothing fancy, but he shows up every day and works hard. We have dinner together once a month. The conversations are still awkward sometimes, but they are getting easier. He has never asked me for money again. I think about Earl every day. I talk to him sometimes when I'm alone in the garden or sitting on the patio watching the sunset. I tell him about the book club, about my ceramics disasters, about the children I tutor. I think he would be proud of me. I also think he would be proud that I finally learned the lesson it took me 64 years to understand. You can love someone with your whole heart and still refuse to let them destroy you. You can forgive someone for the worst thing they have ever done and still hold them accountable. You can be a mother, a wife, a caretaker, a nurturer, and still put yourself first when it matters most. I used to think that strength meant sacrifice, that being a good person meant giving until you had nothing left. But I was wrong. Real strength is knowing your worth. Real strength is setting boundaries. Real strength is standing up and saying, no, this is my house, my life, my story, and you do not get to write the ending. If you are out there right now watching this video, and someone in your life is treating you like you do not matter, I want you to hear me. You matter. Your home matters. Your peace matters. Your dignity matters. You do not have to shrink yourself to make room for someone else. You do not have to accept cruelty from people who are supposed to love you. You do not have to sign your life away because someone tells you it is for the best. You are the author of your own story, and you can always turn the page. Before I go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against someone you love? How did you find the strength to do it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps more people find these videos and hear these messages. If you are not already subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss a story. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who might be going through something similar, please share this video with them. You never know whose life you might change with a simple click. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I am grateful for each and every one of you. From my home to yours, wherever you are in the world, I wish you strength. I wish you peace. I wish you the courage to write your own happy ending. Take care of yourselves. And remember, you are never too old to start over. Until next time.